When you dare to share, you break the silence. When you dare to share, you speak your truth. When you dare to share, you use the full strength of your voice. When you dare to share, it brings opportunity to own your story. So tell it, be heard, and at the same time, your sharing is someone else's learning, inspiration, motivation, empowerment, and hope. There's always an element to each of our stories that remains a secret. For some, we feel it's a dirty little secret. Dare to share your untold story exposes these secrets in a welcoming and positive way. I encourage each of you out there to dare yourself to share what is yours to tell. When we dare, it is the courage to do something really important. Let this be a vow to each and every single one of us that we take risk, we brave, confront, and face what is, while inspiring and empowering all communities. So let's break that silence and tap into mental beauty. This is Salima Jadabji, your podcast host, a practicing clinical social worker, and your mental wellness connoisseur. Welcome to the Dare to Share Your Untold Story podcast, episode number 47, Pain, Struggles, Roadblocks, and the Road to Success. To all my fellow listeners, before we get started, I'm just dropping in a note to give you a heads up that this podcast might be emotionally triggering for you. We do invite guests onto the show who share openly about extremely difficult life moments with exposure and impact of what the struggles have been like. The intensity of each episode could have a variable impact on your emotional and mental well-being based on your own personal story. If at any point the topic becomes uncomfortable or upsetting to you in any way, please do not pressure yourself to listen. Instead, be kind to yourself, do some self-care, and perhaps give another episode a try. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing our courageous and daring guest, Brittany Langell. Brittany grew up in Toronto, Ontario, and is the eldest of 6 siblings. Brittany had dreams of becoming a teacher. She worked tirelessly to obtain 2 university degrees, one from the University of Guelph and the other one from Queen's University. Brittany now resides in Nashville, Tennessee, where her career has really taken off. Brittany began her career in substitute teaching in Bowling Green, Kentucky, to then working in procurement for a senior living company managing their healthcare contracts. Brittany presently holds the role of Director of Provider Network Development for WellPath. As well as thriving in her career, Brittany lives with her husband Benson, who is her number one supporter, and they have been together since age 16. Together, they have an 8-month-old son, Sebastian, and a wonderful dog named Hudson. And Brittany is enjoying learning to have a work-life balance as a new mom. Brittany also loves to travel the world and has been to 16 countries. She enjoys packing up with her husband and exploring, and now brings their son along, who has already been to California twice, Florida, and Toronto. Hey, Brittany. Welcome to the Dare to Share Your Untold Story podcast.
Hi there. Thanks for having me.
Oh my goodness. Brittany, I am thrilled that you are on the show today. I am not just thrilled, I'm actually grateful for your readiness to tell your story. It's extremely important that we take a stance together and build that sense of community and collectively really help break barriers of mental stigma. So thank you for being here.
No, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be a guest and have the opportunity to share my story, because this is not overly talked about in our society today. And, just bringing light to this subject matter and breaking down the stigma of, mental health, and that everyone struggles from hardships, and whether they're small or large, it doesn't really matter, right? It's still mental health, and we all still need to acknowledge it and talk about it.
Exactly. And that's just it. And so this podcast, what I've been aiming to do is bringing forward untold stories that people go through. And as you said, whether it's a big or small story, whether it's directly about mental health or something else, one thing that we see time and time again is that no matter what the story is, there is always some impact to mental health, one's own mental health. And that's the part that people don't talk about. So I'm hoping that we can just keep allowing space for people to feel safe, to not tuck away their stories so much, that they can unleash and unveil and tell their tale.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And so this platform, I'm hoping, is going to continue to serve in a way to break those barriers of mental stigma that have been conditioned in our society. And I know we've come a long way, but I still feel like we have a lot more work to do. So today, together, Miss Brittany, the mission here would be to lead by example and encourage people to share and tell what people typically have reservations for expressing. So I'm also bringing forward this trend. It's called the mental beauty rethink. Brittany, what are some of the first thoughts that you have when you hear the words the mental beauty rethink?
Yeah, I actually have a few different thoughts on that. I mean, when you
Mm-hmm.
really break it down, beauty is in the eye of the beholder,
Mm-hmm.
and beauty itself is both inside and outside of us.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people get lost when they're going through dark times where beauty really lies. And
Mm-hmm.
when I think about the mental beauty rethink, to me, it's everyone is unique and everyone is in a different mental state, and there is beauty in that.
Mm-hmm.
And bringing forward things that we haven't talked about publicly and being transparent and accepting those for who they are.
Mm-hmm. What a great and fresh perspective. I really appreciate how eloquent you were in sharing those words with what your take is on it. And now
Mm-hmm.
I'm feeling even more momentum to start the conversation and delve into your story. So hopefully you're ready to go there too.
Yes, yes, bring it on.
Bring it on. That's so awesome. Okay, Brittany, first question here. Give us the newspaper headline of how you would title your untold story. How would it read?
Ooh, okay. Well, I think how my newspaper headline would read would be how a kid with all odds against her makes it to the top.
Let me see if I got that. So, how a kid with all odds against her makes it to the top.
Yes.
Wow. Okay. Without giving away your entire story, can you just tease that out for us a little bit? What does that title mean to you?
I mean, that's my entire journey wrapped up into one little title. It means that everything I went through in my life up until this point has really just made me who I am today,
Mm-hmm.
and has given me the strength to pull through some really dark times
Mm-hmm.
and get me to my goals and the place that I want to be here today.
Mm-hmm. So, against all odds, eh?
Yeah, I had many roadblocks in my path, and it took almost everything in me to get past them.
Mm-hmm. So, I think it's time to hear about your untold story. So tell us about what your untold story is all about, the roadblocks and all the odds that you faced. I'm
Yeah.
curious.
Whew. Well, this is a story that there's a lot to my story I really kept to myself. Even some of my closest friends, I've just never opened up that door or that box and gave them a look into some of my past, right?
Mm-hmm.
But, it starts where pretty much my entire life I come from a family of divorce. I don't know what it's like to have a two-parent home.
Mm-hmm.
So it pretty much started there with my upbringing and family life of living between two parents and
Mm-hmm.
what that looked like, the chaos and drama that constantly was present in my life, a mother who I really struggled with, and just her being as young as she was. She had me when she was 19. So there was a lot of roadblocks for her and limitations for her. And growing up with her wasn't always the best situation. And things just were hard between struggling with her and taking care of siblings to having to grow up really quickly And from there, it was a domino effect. It affected experiences not only in my home life, but then my struggles in school. I have a very vivid moment in my head that I will never ever forget. And I can close my eyes and picture that moment when at the age of 12, I did decide to move out and move in with my dad.
Okay.
And when I was reestablishing myself in a new school system and getting evaluated because I was so behind in school, I had a teacher who, is supposed to be a mentor, an advocate for all students, tell my dad, not knowing that I could hear, that university wasn't in my path. And we had to accept that. And it was up to him to choose where I should need to go in life because that wasn't going to be in my cards. That wasn't an option for me.
From age 12, this teacher had decided to forecast that part of your education post high school. So you were in elementary school still.
Yes, that was actually in grade six. That conversation happened. Wow. It was a teacher that supports kids with special needs. So it really is shocking at being a teacher myself today, even though I'm not practicing, that was the thinking of this teacher. And so from then on, it was a battle just trying to prove myself against that statement and judgment made from me at that time. Also in the same parallel of dealing with family life, right? And then pretty much getting me to where I am today, being in a really good spot in my career. But it definitely came with a lot of pain. And I still feel pain today, right? So, and my mother currently is a missing persons case. So unfortunately, there still is a lot of pain and sadness that I deal with today, even in the eye of success that I'm becoming in my career.
Right.
That's like a quick summary.
Yeah, but there seems to be a lot of layers of different pieces that bring together all the different roadblocks and turmoil and pain and suffering that have been part of your journey. And as much as I want to start asking you some questions about your mother being a missing persons case, I kind of wanted, with your permission, to be able to go a little bit further back. A moment ago, you talked about you really struggled with your mom, your mother, from a young age, that you had to grow up quickly. You were sort of parenting your siblings and you were behind in school. I'm curious if you're able to share a little bit about what those struggles were like.
Like I mentioned, my mom had me young. She was 19. So she was very much still a child herself. So growing up wasn't the easiest for me. I have a little brother, maybe a year apart. Do have several half siblings, but they come a little bit later. But being that young, she was living off of child support and welfare checks. I vividly remember standing in line waiting to pick up those welfare checks. But she didn't grow up yet. So she was still very much wanting to find herself and go out and party. And I just remember there were a lot of times where she would take hours to get ready with her girlfriends and then would be out for the night. So my brother and myself were with babysitters a lot. And she, was out for all hours of the night, not coming home till the next morning. And then you had me and my brother taking care of her when she was sick, or now I know, like hungover, and fending for ourselves. She wasn't the worst mother ever. She, she took care of us when she could, and you can tell there was love there, but it's just it wasn't enough.
It wasn't consistent, it doesn't sound like.
No, it really wasn't, right? And school wasn't a big factor for her. She would rather us help with other things. So any homework that we had, it wasn't really getting done. There were times where I wouldn't be going to school because she just didn't simply want to take us or walk me to the bus.
And so what would happen? Like if you didn't go to school, did the school ever follow up with you guys, or did anyone notice that what patterns were going on for you?
Oh, for sure. I was the number one record in the school for tardiness and days not showing up.
What did they think that was about? Like, did school administration ever wonder?
I think they did. I mean, I can't even count on my two hands how many times I've had to be interviewed by social services at that
Right.
time in my life.
What was that like for you?
Scary. I mean, you're a
Yeah.
kid and you have people questioning you and asking you really deep questions. And, just being an adult now, I know how social services workers can be, and they really push and prod. And I know that they're only trying to do good for you. But
Mhm.
what I will say is that was such a reoccurrence that my mom did tell us how to answer those questions, right?
Mm.
She did sit us down and say, like, these are the answers you give them. This is how you talk. This is what you say. So no matter what questions that came our way or whatever poking or prodding that they try to do with myself and my brother, pulling us out of class for those interviews, which they did at the school,
Mm-hmm.
they didn't get anywhere with us because we were very much trained on what to say.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that my mother might not know or see it even today, but there was a lot of verbal kind of abuse where we got yelled at a lot or called names, or if something didn't go right, or if I did say something to the social workers that had them question her a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
I would get in trouble. So there was that piece there as well, right? And it was always a mental game in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
This is my truth, right? So how I took things growing up, it was just always a mental game with her.
How young were you when you feel like you could start remembering all of these pieces about like being interviewed by social services and this mental game and the verbal abuse? And it's almost like you started to perfect things like, well, if I say it this way, I'm going to get in trouble. So I've got to tweak it this way. And I have to remember what my mom told me about this so I can say it that way. It seems like you were already doing a lot of organizing and planning in your mind. How old were
Yeah.
you when all that started?
I mean, honestly, I remember going all the way back until grade 1,
So how old are we when we were in grade one? 6 years old?
somewhere around there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, Brittany. Just 6 years old, and this is what you remember.
Yeah. Yeah. I would cook for myself. There were my mom's a great cook. I'll give her that. But there were
Mm-hmm.
many times where we were fending for ourselves. Or I remember there was one year where my father just stopped showing up. We would see him every other weekend, only
Okay.
that weekend. And my mom told my brother and I that he didn't want to see us.
Mm-hmm.
And as a child, I mean, when you have a parent telling you your other parent doesn't want to see you, that is devastating.
Of course.
And for me, it was even more devastating because my dad's side of the family is a completely 360. That was
Mm-hmm.
my outlet every other weekend to get out,
Mm-hmm.
to try to be somewhat of a child.
And when you were with them every other week or every other weekend, them being the outlet, could they see what you were going through? Could those family members notice that there was something that you were impacted by or that your way of life at home with your mom was affecting you? Did anyone pick up on that?
I'm sure they did, but as a child,
Mm-hmm.
I was very good at bottling up my emotions because I knew
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have the time to sit there and to be sad and to dwell. It was about survival and getting through. And when they would ask me certain questions, I'd be like, I'm fine. And
Mm-hmm.
I would just bottle them up and put them away in a corner
Mm-hmm.
and try to keep them there. Never open it up. And they could see that they knew that stuff was going on. But unfortunately back then it was in the system, I guess you could say, the mother has the upper hand. I mean, it's changed today,
Mm-hmm.
but back then it really was, they didn't really consider keeping parents on an even playing field. It was more about the mother having the children.
Right.
So, like we were told that, and that was devastating to me.
Right, because your dad doesn't want to see you, and you were so used to having that every other
Yeah.
week.
And I was really close with my dad, and losing that outlet.
That must have been so confusing, like, and conflicting for you in terms of all those internal emotions, especially if you say you were close to him. I can only imagine if you were having thoughts inside, like, what did I do wrong? Like, what happened? I thought he loved me. Like, why doesn't he want to see me? Did I do something wrong last time I was there? Like,
Hmm.
did any thoughts like that cross your mind?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I sat there nights on end crying,
Oh,
thinking, why me? What did I do? Is it my grades? Was it I was
mhm.
bad? Was it
Oh, you were thinking it was some kind of punishment.
who knows, right? Like,
Right.
there are a lot of nights that I would sit there and think and feel extreme sadness. And being at the age that I was, didn't
Mm-hmm.
really know how to deal with it. And this is
Mm,
part of the mental game, right? Because
right.
later in life, I ended up finding out that that wasn't the case at all. She actually kept him from seeing us.
Right. That was a hard truth to hear,
It
I'm
was a
sure.
really hard truth to realize as I got older in life of some of the things that I would not have understand at that age.
Mhm, mhm,
But, I had a little sister come in at the age of 7 or 8.
mhm,
And at that point, my mom was still going out, still wanting her life, still partying. I mean, guys coming in and out of the house. With that sister's dad, they were together for a really long time, but then they ended up separating, and that's when things really started to pick up with her
mhm,
going back out. And
mhm,
all of a sudden, I was a built-in babysitter
mhm.
and taking care of a baby, not
Right.
someone that was manageable, like a baby.
And you were just 7 at the time.
7 or 8. Yep,
Right.
around there.
Wow.
And I mean, there's one night very vividly that I remember, like they didn't get home until 7 in the morning. And her friend also had a baby. So it was me with two babies and my brother.
Oh my goodness.
So I didn't know how to be a child. I
Mhm,
didn't know how to function and play because there was always some sort of what's next? What do I have to do? Who do I have to take care of?
mhm,
And that didn't leave any room for school. I mean, I was lucky in the sense where school was my path for an outlet. If it wasn't my dad's, I always wanted to be at school.
mhm.
That was my happy place.
Right.
I tried to join teams, but my mom wouldn't let me because that means I would have to be at school after hours, and she just didn't want to come pick me up after hours. I remember specifically, I wanted to go to a friend's house for lunch, and she told me no. And I couldn't understand why. So I was a very trusted student with a lot of the teachers. So when I didn't have a note, but I told them, my mom said yes because I lied, they let me go.
Mhm,
And oh my gosh, I don't know how she found out, but the trouble I was in for that was huge. And yeah, I lied. I was a kid, but at the same time, it's the struggle of I was so kept in this box and
yeah.
trying to,
You just wanted to get out and have some fun. You just wanted to connect.
yes, not
Mhm.
be a parent at such a young
Yeah.
age.
Yeah. You just wanted to be your age and be around other like-minded young people,
Mm-hmm.
your
Mm-hmm.
peers, have friendships.
There were so many nights where I would sit there and just not understand why I'm in the situation I'm in, or
Mhm.
I just wanted to run away,
Mhm.
or the pain that I would be sitting there feeling
Mhm.
because, like I just thought there was never a moment in time where I could please her.
Right. I'm curious, Brittany. That's a lot that happened when you were young, and all of these things that you've shared have all happened before you moved to be with your dad. I think you told me you were 12 years old when you moved to live with your father, right?
Right.
So I'm just curious that even after you moved in with your father, what was the role of your mom or your mother in your life? Did things started to simmer down? And did the interactions change since you didn't have to be there to be the parent anymore?
Hmm.
Or did she interact with you in any other way? Did her role in your life change at all once you moved to your father?
It did a little bit. It's taken me up to this point in my life to accept where things are with her. I was never able to cut her out. I was never able to stand up for myself to her. And after I moved in with my dad, she cut me out of her life. She was so angry with me, and didn't talk to me probably for a year. Wanted nothing to do with me because she just couldn't believe that I left. And she's done that my whole life, where she would cut me out and bring me back and cut me out again. It's happened, gosh, more times than I can count. But
like a repeat offense where your mom has this go-to behavior, this go-to thing.
Oh, yes.
Where it's like, I'm going to cut you out. I'm upset with you. That's your punishment. But then I need you. I want to talk to you. And your perfectionism and people-pleasing piece that was emerging within you from a young child kind of engaged with her rhythm.
Oh, yeah. And that was her role. That's the role she established, was coming in and out. But she made sure to stay on the hook somehow. So she would call the house and scream at me for an hour and call me every name in the book and hang up. And I didn't have it inside me at that age to be able to hang up on her. I sat there and I listened to every word that she said. And they weren't very nice words. So when you're in your prime tweens and teens, that is a huge impact to have a parent display that type of behavior to you. And she didn't make it to anything. I mean, I have a stepmother who has been more of a mother figure to me than she has been. I mean, my stepmother has made it to all my graduations, including grade 8 and both degrees. She's been in the audience when I'm showing horses. You know, she was there for a lot of things that my mother said she would be there for, and then last minute would call me, yell at me about something, hang up, and not show up because she likes to create her own drama. My life with her in it is constantly chaos and destruction and pain. And that's the relationship that we have.
Wow. And so that's how it continued on, like a yo-yo.
Yep. Just a cycle that just kept going.
Just a cycle that kept going. Were there any other roadblocks that you remember growing up that sort of were part of your journey in sort of getting you to where you are today?
Yeah. Because my mother wasn't a huge advocate for school, that wasn't her first priority for us, I fell really behind. I was several reading levels behind my actual grade. I was struggling in every subject because I didn't have the help other than at school to excel in anything education. So at that point, I started to be taken out of class and put in a special needs class. And I got bullied really bad for that. Every topic, I was being pulled out in front of the entire class, every subject, and put into a different class, and that separation. At that point, I was in a Catholic school, actually. And just the bullying I got from that and how I was not normal. I was different because I couldn't be in the mainstream classroom. That created a lot of roadblocks for me because when I did get out and when I did move in with my dad and get reestablished in another school system, that is why I was being evaluated, was because I was so far behind. And hearing this educator tell him that university wasn't in my cards because of all the roadblocks I would have had to overcome, I'm not going to lie, really lit a fire under me. Set something off that I was like, I'm going to be on a journey to prove you wrong.
Right. Nice.
At that point in time, I was really behind. I continued to be behind. It was going to be hard to catch up that many grade levels, but
Mm-hmm.
luckily my father didn't take that either. He's stuck up for me. He made the school work with us. I ended up being put on an IEP, which is an individual education plan.
Mm-hmm.
So it keeps students in the classroom and not taken out. So
Okay.
people can't see that you're being taken out of the classroom. Things just get adjusted behind the scenes.
Right.
But those are still a lot of roadblocks for me,
Yes,
right?
of course.
A lot of things I don't share. Like this is something I never shared, but this is where my perfectionism really kicked in,
Mm-hmm.
because even if I got a B plus on a report card, I would beat myself up and cry, and I was devastated. And my dad hated report card time because if I didn't get straight A's,
Mm-hmm.
it was not a good thing. Like I would come home and it would take a week for me to recover and be okay with the B pluses, which really isn't that bad of a grade.
Right, especially the progress that you had made and the efforts you were putting in and your dedicated time and
Mm-hmm.
working hard to make a comeback.
Yeah.
You were so hard on yourself.
Yep.
Wow. That's a lot of roadblocks, a lot of struggles, right from just even your elementary time period, like your elementary school time period.
Oh, yeah.
So many struggles that you had to face.
Yep. And in between working on school and trying to catch up and trying to be the person that I want to be, I still had a struggle in the family life. I still was in so much pain because I had a mother who either wasn't talking to me that year.
Yeah, she kept coming and going. So I'm sure you were walking on eggshells at, from time to time, not sure when she was going to show up.
Yeah. Yeah. It was like my dad was, well, are you going to see her this weekend? Or are we not talking again? Or are you going to call the house and threaten her because she left? I still think up until this day that a part of her still punishes me for leaving, for
Mm-hmm.
picking that way out.
Mm, yeah. That's a hard truth to sort of keep in your mind for so long.
Mm-hmm.
But I hope you know that whether she's holding on to that or not, you don't need to, right?
It's taken up until this point in my life to be able to accept that,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
it's a pain that I've carried for
Yeah.
so long and wondered.
Hmm. As long as you can acknowledge it now, though, right? As long as you can at least start that process to acknowledge and say, that's not mine. That's hers. I'm going to give that back to her.
Yeah.
She can work on that and process that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the funny thing is that I could never cut her out.
Mm-hmm.
And when we did have the moments of talking again, that I had to be this therapist of the family where if she was fighting with my brother, it was coming to me. If she was angry with the other sister, she was coming to me. If she needed help or needed money or needed anything, she would come to me.
Sounds like you had this overdeveloped role of being the savior, the hero, and the mother to the family.
Yeah. And I think when I ended up getting the opportunity to move to the States with Benson, that was a really hard choice to make because who wants to leave their home,
Yeah, everything that you know, everything that was familiar to you.
the comfort that you built? But, a deep, deep down inside, a part of me knew in order for me to be a better person and achieve the goals and shine the way I wanted to shine, I couldn't do that staying there and being
Hmm.
able for her to access me. I had to leave.
Right.
That was the only way that I could step out of that drama and be far away and be able to be my own person. I knew if I stayed, there was not going to be ever a way out for me because I would be too close to home.
Right. Right.
And that sucks because that leaves behind my father, my stepmom, all my siblings. But I knew deep down inside that was the best choice for me to get out of this cycle with her.
Right. Yeah. And it was obviously something that was a very difficult choice for you to make, a really very difficult choice for you to make. But it sounds like you really allowed yourself to choose yourself for the first time.
Yeah. And, like we're still dealing with a lot today. My two youngest half sisters on my mom's side, she dropped them off at their dad's one night like they were nothing and left them behind. And no one's heard from her since.
So, Brittany, when people come to see me in the therapy space, individuals are typically in one of three places. Some are getting started, some are in the middle, some are looking back. What part of the journey would you say that you're in? I know there's lots of different elements and moving parts of your journey, but where would you say that you are? In the beginning, the middle, or looking back?
I would say I would fall in the middle-ish.
Middle-ish? Okay.
Yeah, like I said earlier, it's taken me up to this point in my life to finally accept that I haven't done anything wrong. And I have done the best that I can do for her. And so to get to that point, I would say I'm in the middle, right? I finally got there. I'm starting to accept the things as they are and work towards being my best self.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And so, I'm a little curious. I mean, we've talked about a lot of things and you've mentioned a number of things, but if we were to look or zone in a little bit further on how your mental health was affected at any point in this journey, I know that you've mentioned having a roller coaster of emotions, having those really like intense experiences of certain emotions, and some of them being really high and low, and even questioning yourself and that emerging perfectionism. But are you able to like tease it out a little bit more? Can you tell me a little bit more about what kind of emotions were you experiencing, or what was part of that roller coaster?
Yeah. I mean, I've had really high highs of happiness and really low lows of darkness. And I had happy moments with my mom. There's no doubt about it, of course. And I still will always have love for her. But there were times of huge happiness where those moments were great, or I was with my father. But there were a lot of lows and darkness where I just, as a child, did not know how to sort out my hurt and sadness and understand what's going on, right?
So when you were experiencing sadness, what was that like? How did it manifest for you?
For me at that age, it was just sitting in silence. I didn't know how to deal with it. I mean, I was a child and I was put in a unique situation of just really unfortunate and series of events. And when I would sit there, it would just like feel this darkness consume me. And I ended up just shutting down and becoming silent. And luckily, I didn't lash out too badly or turn to anything extreme. Because at the end of the day, somehow my intuition and my gut told me there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and to just reach for it. And that light for me was my outlets of school or my father or visiting him for the weekend. But I would shut down a lot where I wouldn't talk about anything, where I would just constantly sit there stewing and wondering. And again, I didn't know how to deal with it. We're going from the ages of 6 to 12 and even older after. As I got older, I started to understand, like I would pick myself up, try to dust myself off and keep marching forward, because at the end of the day, that's not the person I wanted to be. I knew who I wanted to be. But overcoming some of that was extremely hard.
Sure. Did you ever experience panic attacks or any other like physical sensations that you knew that something was happening inside you, even if you couldn't understand it? Did anything show up for you like that?
Fortunately, no, I didn't
Mm-hmm.
have any panic attacks or
Okay.
anything like that. I would have situations where I would just, at one point, just start crying. Like nothing happened,
Mm-hmm.
but I would just start crying and I didn't know how to control it because I bottled it up for so long that at some point in time, that bottle burst.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be everything coming out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I only would do that once in a while. And it was like at my peak where I had my aunt who was a significant figure in my life as a mom, and my dad who finally, just asked me, "Oh, are you okay?" And I just couldn't bottle it up anymore and just would have a little bit of a crying breakdown. And that was my way of dealing with that and getting it out. But
Mm.
I mastered as a child how to put everything in a box and hide the box and keep it back there and never look at it.
Right. So you mastered this box, but it also sounds like your dad's sister, your aunt,
Mm-hmm.
was someone you felt really safe with. So it seems like she showed enough compassion that you allowed yourself opportunity to receive compassion and feel compassion for yourself. That could have been one of the reasons why the bottle broke, right?
Right, right.
Finally, there's a safe place. You were all warmed up and ready, and it just all came out.
My dad and I lived with my aunt when I first moved in with him, and it was her family and my three cousins and me and my dad and then my grandmother. And my aunt and my grandmother were the closest thing I had to a mother
Mm-hmm.
other than my stepmom. And when we were living with them, I was super close. I am super close with both of them. Unfortunately, my grandmother did pass away a couple of years ago, but those two figures helped me become the woman I am today.
Right.
And you're right. They probably made me feel a sense of safety where I could sit down with them and tell them things
Mm-hmm.
and not feel judgment or feel like I was doing anything wrong.
Right. That you'd be punished. Yeah.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Like they were my rock and
Yes.
the best person I could look up to.
Right. It sounds like they were pillars of strength for you.
Mm-hmm. They were the light for me
Yeah.
at the end of my tunnel of darkness.
Wow. So, Brittany, what would be your key message to the listeners of the show? What is really important for you to convey to them today?
Yeah. Everyone has hardships in life, everyone struggles. But I guess for me, the message would be it doesn't matter where you come from. What matters is where you want to go.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And where you are going is really up to you.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of people in this world that would be in my situation or even worse situations. And we get stuck in this cycle. But if you want that chance,
Mm-hmm.
it's yours and you can take it. And does it take a lot of work? Yes. And are people going to tell you're going to fail? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But if you deep down inside know that's what you want or know who you want to be, don't listen to who says you're going to fail. Just keep reaching for your goals.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's right. Don't listen to the others. You got to find your own voice and really connect with that voice and then focus and zone right in on it, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's a really powerful message. Yeah, there will be tough
Yeah.
moments,
Yeah.
but if you keep focused, it's hard work, blood, sweat, and tears.
At some point, we all go through the trenches of darkness.
Of
It's
course.
just figuring out how to get out.
Right. But you're living proof of that.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I am. It's taken, though, a lot of reflection and going through my pain, though.
Mm-hmm.
If I
Mm-hmm.
didn't go through it and feel it, I wouldn't be who I am today.
Right. So that's another message. Reflect, go through your pain, feel it,
Mm-hmm.
move through it.
People feel like it's not okay to feel sad or to feel like they're lonely or there's no way out. And it really is okay to feel a huge amount of sadness. to be in the dark sometimes.
Yeah.
You just got to learn that you do have somebody out there vouching for you, and there's always someone you can talk to.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So, Brittany, what would you say if we're talking about that game-changing inspiration that might have been part of your untold story? What would you say was that inspiration that really reflects your untold story? That thing, that pivotal moment, or that pivotal thing, or that reminder, or whatever it would be that reflects your untold story. What would that have been for you? Like for some people, they'll tell me about a quote or a book or an event or something or a person. For you, what would that have been?
For me, mine is a little bit of a harsh truth and reality.
Okay.
But for me is that, my mother had her limitations and I had my own, but I wanted to be my own person. I wanted to be a better person and shine the way that I wanted to shine. And somehow, as a kid that had to grow up really quickly, somehow inside of me, I knew that the life that she lived is not the life I wanted to live. And she gave me that drive to be better. And I learned so much what she couldn't give me to what I needed. So it is a bit of a harsh truth to say it that way, but that is my perspective and my own truth. And I just remember thinking that life was not for me. I can do better. I need to do better.
Right. It seems like it was internal inspiration in a way, right? When you're saying that life is not for me. This life is not for me. I'm meant to have more. I'm meant to be better. And it sounds like you're living proof of that. It's like this idea was etched inside your mind, in your mindset. As you said, since you were a kid, you already had to grow up quickly. So who knows what sort of thoughts and reflections and insights and inspiration you were getting from whatever you were exposed to. But to recognize that this is not the life that I want to live. I don't want to become that. I do want to become this, though. I'm not sure how, but because I know what it is, I'm going to find a way.
Exactly. And, I also had an aunt on my mother's side. They would look at us and make comments. They didn't think that we were going to amount to anything. I don't know. I'm built the way that when someone looked at me like that and said something along those lines, it just would light a fire. And I'd be like, okay, you watch me. I will prove you wrong.
You showed her.
I did. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So what is a cause or an organization that has been impactful to you on your journey that you would like to give a shout out to? So this could be like, an organization that was influential, like as you were growing up, or maybe one that you found now that you think would be really good for someone who might be going through the kinds of things you went through previously.
Yeah. So there is a current organization that's local in Nashville. It's called Play Like a Girl.
Play Like a Girl? That sounds pretty fun. Tell me more about that.
So they support young girls from the ages of, I think, 9 to 13 in being better and mentoring them to reach for the stars. They really promote the STEM program, Women in Science, but they really serve a vulnerable population. They're trying to give girls an opportunity and a mentor and an outlet to look up to and to show them that you can reach for anything as long as you put your mind to it and hard work.
Right.
And I was asked to be a mentor. Fortunately, it was around the time I was just becoming a mom, so the timing just didn't line up correctly.
Right. Well, I'm sure you will be a mentor when it's meant to be for you, right? But that sounds like a phenomenal organization, a phenomenal charity. Play Like a Girl. Amazing. So, how can people connect with you if they would like to? What platforms are you findable on?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Instagram, and I'm on Facebook.
Amazing. Okay. Wow. Brittany,
Yeah.
guess what?
What?
You just dared yourself to share. Congratulations.
Whew. Wow, that was fun. I really hope that, my story just at least helps one person.
I'm pretty sure it's going to help more than one person. Brittany, for me, I just want to take a moment to say that I am feeling quite privileged to be able to hear all that you were able to bring forward and reveal in your untold story, tying all the pieces together from your upbringing to what family life was like and all those overdeveloped roles that you played and feeling the weight of the world on your shoulders and taking it on anyway.
Yeah.
To working through pain, leading you to today's success. This is like just untouchable. It's admirable. It speaks volumes to your courage and your strength and your abilities. And you've taken great risks to speak openly today. And so I'm really grateful to be on this side of it, on the listening side and the witnessing side. So thank you for the deep conversation and for all the daring and all the sharing today.
No, thank you so much for having me. It's been a real pleasure to get to talk to you.
The pleasure is mine. And once again, Brittany, thank you for being part of Dare to Share Your Untold Story and helping to be a voice in breaking down the barriers of mental stigma. To all of our listeners, if you like what you've been hearing on this podcast and you want to be part of breaking down barriers of mental stigma, I invite you to go wherever you are listening to the episode and hit subscribe. Leave us a comment or a review of the episode and maybe how you relate to it. To learn more about what we offer, visit www.daretoheal.co. And if you are feeling ready and brave to share, please submit your story by visiting www.daretoshare.co. Thanks for joining in.